everyone, and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location here in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicholas Razo, and without further ado, I would present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Rey, who is on much-deserved vacation at the moment. So we are flying solo here, and we are very happy to see all of you back again, as we do every week. And we wanted to welcome all the new subscribers. Please hit the like button. Please drop us a comment, especially to let us know what kind of topics you want to see us cover in the future, and just to let us know how good our hair is, I'm sure. But guys, that is probably as lighthearted as I'm going to be able to get this early in the show, because we have a very unfortunate event to talk about, which I'm sure many of you can guess, unfortunately, is the shooting at Annunciation Catholic Church. This terrible event, which has really rocked our community. This is something that I think people need to understand, that when there is shootings, especially at these religious institutions, the entire world is going to come out, especially when that religion expands all over the world with love and prayers. So before we get into any news, guys, let's take a moment and pray for the souls of those who have died. Let's take a moment to pray for the swift recovery of those who have been injured in this ridiculous, completely senseless attack. And I don't mean that just as a platitude. We will get into that. But for now, folks, let us begin with this unfortunate, terrible tragedy.
The attack of a deranged gunman rocked the nation after they opened fire on a Catholic school in Minneapolis, slaughtering 2 children and injuring at least 17 others on August 27th. Robin Westman opened fire through the stained glass windows of a church at the Annunciation Catholic School before committing suicide. But who was Robin Westman?
Besides a maniac, of course.
23-year-old Robin Westman, formerly Robert Westman, has been identified as a transgender woman from Minnesota. Westman applied to change names from Robert to Robin in Dakota County at 17 years old.
Pretty early, huh?
Documents. The name change.
And then we all wonder why conservatives want to protect kids from being able to do this. You know what I mean? He was able to change his name and change his whole life before the age of reason, before the age of 18. So if you ever wonder why conservatives fight for these kind of restrictions, this might be a very good point to say this is why.
Was granted in January 2020. The petition added that Westman, quote, identifies as a female and wants her name to reflect that identification. Just hours before the cowardly massacre, Westman posted a series of twisted videos on YouTube, which included a manifesto, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hare confirmed at a press conference. In one 20-minute video, Westman flipped through a disturbing handwritten manifesto. In the deranged writings, it states that Westman had been suicidal for several years, but wanted to take others out too. Westman goes on to gleefully fantasize about, quote, being that scary, horrible monster standing over those powerless kids, and inadvertently confesses admiration for the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre, as well as other mass shootings.
Almost every one, in fact.
Each page is filled with unintelligible, handwritten doggerel.
I want us all to take a deep look at this image right here. This is a man who literally saw himself as a demon. Now imagine, folks, if Robert here went into that church, not to kill, but to be saved. Imagine if he showed this notebook to the priest and said, hey, Pops, I need some help. I got something going on, and I know you'll help me. But he didn't do that. And I would say the demonization of religion in this country has a massive degree to do with why that took place. And I want you guys to notice the lettering. It's going to become important soon.
As well as writings in Cyrillic, which include violent ramblings such as, quote, I have had thoughts about mass murder for a long time.
Now, I want to ask all of you right here, why would this person know Cyrillic and know it well enough to write it out like this? For anyone who doesn't know, Cyrillic is the Slavic alphabet. They use it in Russia and other places. So what is up with this? Did he know Russian? Did he know this language? Or is this something a little more unnatural? Let's see. That'll come up later as well.
I am very conflicted with writing this journal. The text, translated by the Post, reads in part. The writings also go into great detail about his decision to target Annunciation, where Westman's mother, Mary Grace Westman, worked until her 2021 retirement, according to a Facebook post by the church. Quote, maybe I could attack an event at the on-site church, which was ominously scribbled. Quote, I think attacking a large group of kids coming in from recess is my best plan. Then from there, I can go inside and kill, going for as long as I can. Westman's journal also contained copious amounts of anti-Semitic bile. Quote, if I will carry out a racially motivated attack, it would be most likely against filthy Zionist Jews.
Yeah, so you target a Catholic church. Interesting. So let's look at this right here. This is going to be very important.
Another video posted to YouTube in the hours before the massacre showed a cache of weapons, including a semi-automatic rifle and a shotgun. Ammunition magazines were scrawled with, quote, for the children, kill Donald Trump, and 6 million wasn't enough, a reference to the number of Jewish Holocaust victims. While the deranged writings fantasize about assassinating President Trump and Jews.
Yeah, I want to make the point very clear that this deranged individual seemed to have been what we can only describe as algorithm farming. I mean, look at this, the complete incoherentness of these references.
They also revealed a motive, that killing, quote, children of innocent civilians would bring, quote, the most joy. Westman, who died at the scene of a self-inflicted gunshot wound, was armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a handgun.
That's terrible, absolutely terrible event that took place, but we have to analyze it with maturity and intelligence. So what is going on here? We can get some more information perhaps from a classmate of his who was recently interviewed, and we have the interview here.
You guys, Josefina Sanchez says she knew Robin Westman when he was a teen boy with a few friends and some odd obsessions. She says she attended grade school with Robin, who then went by Robert. Looking back, she says she now sees some red flags.
Something I knew was off, but I was a kid. How would I know, what to do?
In the 7th grade,
always
Josefina
the problem.
Sanchez says she struck up a friendship with the boy she knew as Robert Westman, but that friendship was short-lived.
When you see something, it doesn't leave your mind. When you see something erratic, it doesn't leave your mind. So he would put up his hand and say praise Hitler.
That sort
now,
of
at grade school, it should be said,
behavior was on full display in a series of videos investigators say Westman scheduled to post on YouTube around the same time as the attack. The videos show ammo, magazines, and guns with the names of other mass shooters.
Tomorrow.
Sounded like he just gave up on singing the song there.
Family. But that's it. That's the only people I'm sorry to.
The videos also include this manifesto that investigators are now combing through, looking for clues of a motive. It's addressed to friends and family and says in part, I'm tired of the pain this world gives out.
So is the rest of us, buddy, but we don't commit mass shootings about it.
I'm not well. I am not right. Where do you think that's coming from?
I think it's actually spiritual battle. I don't think it's this world. It's demonic. I'm sorry, but it is. And I think
rightfully said.
Jesus.
We do need Jesus.
He needed him.
Sanchez says this video of Robin's journal, written in another language, brought back memories of West.
Look how much he wrote in Cyrillic. This kid knew this language, and I think, call me crazy, folks, but I think ascertaining the way or the possibility that he learned or knew this language will be a key factor in investigating going forward, assuming the police and everybody doing their jobs, just because of the identity involved.
Writing in code, so nobody could understand it.
That was kind of triggering. I wish I could have said something sooner, but I was
Nothing
little,
you
how
can
do I
say.
know?
It's okay.
All those YouTube videos that were posted have been taken down by law enforcement. And besides the suspected shooter speaking broadly about problems in the world and being suicidal, there's no clear indication of a motive outlined in the writings or the video clips. Kevin.
You know, Lindsay and I have been talking.
So we have to address the obvious now. This was a trans individual. Legally, ideologically, you guys saw the trans flag with the AK-47. The AK-47, which is, again, of a Russian design. The Cyrillic, again, coming into effect. Now, I'm sure you guys can infer this. There is no way that Minnesota police have this quickly brought a Cyrillic translator over to comb through this whole thing. I don't know if this information will ever be made public, what that translates into. But if there is anybody who can do this, it's Hispanic Patriot Podcast. So, folks, we're going to see if we can get this translated. If we can, we'll let you know. And we will try our best to illuminate the situation from that regard. But let's try to illuminate the situation from a psychological regard. What caused this? Because everybody all over the spectrum, right wing, left wing, has a different theory. The right wing says he's a crazy trans person. What do you expect? He attacked Christians. He's a Christian hater. There's people on the left who say this guy was a neo-Nazi. He praised Hitler. He hated Jews, which is not an exclusively right-wing thing at all, especially in the United States, but okay. This guy had almost every meme reference you could actually think of. You know, if Skibbity Toilet was written on the rifles, you know, somewhere, or the guns, or the magazines, we probably wouldn't, you know, hear about it. It's not particularly reportable. So, but what was referenced is Ethan Klein, iDubbbz, Brandon Herrera, who has never met the guy in question, Vape God, 1982 cult films, like, this guy's all over the place. And I think that the fact that he started his life very early on, you know, praising Hitler because it was the contrarian thing to do. Now he's trans because it's the contrarian thing to do. I think we have an arch contrarian. And I would actually put a name to such an action because we've seen this constantly. The Highland Park shooter who was dressed up in a dress. So many of these situations. I would classify this as avant-garde terrorism. Avant-garde terrorism. What do I mean by that? The avant-garde is the entirety surrealism, this idea, you know, we are going to break free from reality. We reject reality completely. That's really what avant-garde, you know, kind of people think about. These people don't think about anything except what will offend, what will inspire rejection of. They're almost anti-reactionaries. So it's a rejection of reality through violence as a form of art. And I think if this person had any admiration for Hitler, I think that that's where it would be coming from, is violence as art, as avant-garde art. I think that if you see mass shootings through that lens, they make immeasurably more sense, especially when we see this very strange set of trans shootings. So now you all know this is what's going on, avant-garde terrorism. We have people who are so screwed up with no outlet that this is the way that they will express themselves. And we need to put a stop to it, guys. We need to put a stop to it. How can we do this? Start young. Do not teach these kids that there's an outlet for their serious psychopathy in sexuality. Do not teach them this. This is how we create terrible, terrible crimes. And we as a society need to stop doing this. So that is what we have to do, is pray, pray, pray for that day and work, work, work so that it can happen. So all of us at Hispanic Patriot Podcast, again, prayers to the departed and the injured. And unfortunately, we have to talk about more departed and injured because we have to talk about Chicago, Illinois. My hometown is going to be visited by some National Guardsmen, courtesy of our president. Let us take a look.
According to the Washington Post, the Pentagon has been planning a military deployment to Chicago for weeks. The Post also reporting that plans could involve several options, including sending at least a few thousand members of the National Guard to Chicago as soon as next month. The Washington Post also reporting that there have been talks about using thousands of active duty troops in Chicago, but reports that plan is less likely to happen. Threats to deploy the National Guard to Chicago could come to fruition, according to the Washington Post, with possible plans to deploy as soon as September. This is all in support of what President Trump says is a crackdown on crime. National Guard troops have already been deployed in Washington, D.C., and this comes after Trump Friday alluded to Chicago being the next target. Despite these calls, Chicago police data shows violent crime is down in comparison
population
to this time
is
last
down.
year. Mayor Brandon Johnson had this to say at a block party earlier today.
One shooting, one homicide is one too many. And that's why
100 is a statistic.
Today is so powerful because it's a reminder of how much work we have to do. Look at all of these young people and these families that are here today.
That aren't going to be here tomorrow.
Chicago really is. What's being painted by the federal government is false.
It's much worse than that.
We support one another. We put our arms around one another.
Especially when we're shot.
Because we know that we are our best keepers of one another.
Governor J.B. Pritzker saying in a statement tonight, in part, quote, Donald Trump is attempting to manufacture a crisis, politicize Americans who serve in uniform, and continue abusing his power to distract from the pain he is causing working families. And Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton referencing the Washington Post directly tonight, saying President Trump is trying to, quote, create chaos. Both Stratton and Pritzker say the state has not received any requests or outreach from the federal government asking for assistance, and say in return the state has not asked for federal intervention.
Well, they're not gonna ask, frankly. And, I think a silent earthquake is exactly what I would describe what's going on underneath Chicago. And not just because they jacked up all the buildings in order to put the sewer system underneath in the 1800s. Folks, I was emotional there. This is my hometown. I would have loved to see this when I lived there. I would have loved to see this when my mother lived there and had her liquor store shot up. There's little bodega, basically, run by, very nice, small man, just trying to make it through life. Just a place where you get your essentials, your milk and all that. And they shot it up. I wish the National Guard was there to protect the restaurants. I wish somebody was there to protect the people, most especially. Because we've lost loved ones. We've lost friends to violence in Chicago. And we're tired of it. The idea that there are people all over the country who are cursing our president for sending troops into what I would describe as a military situation. We like to make the joke, living in Colorado Springs, that they love us Chicagoans here. We already have combat experience. And it's really true. The street combat in Chicago is the way it is. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because Chicago is the most ethnically segregated city in the country. Again, by ethnicity. Not by race, by ethnicity. The Puerto Ricans have their spot. The Polish have their spot. The Ukrainians have Ukrainian village. The Russians have wherever they live, etc., etc., etc. Everybody has their place. And that means you have literally blocks already set up for defense and basing for attack. You need an overarching force to control that city. And if it's not going to be its own political machine, then it's going to be the federal government. That's what happened under Al Capone. That's what's happening here. And it's very telling that this is happening at the destruction of the Mike Madigan machine, the destruction of all of what, I forgot her real name, Lori Lightfoot. I almost used a terrible name that I'm not going to use. This machine was destroyed. Brandon Johnson has nowhere near the charisma or intelligence in order to carry on that machine that has been controlling Chicago for all these years, for almost a century at this point. Over a century, I actually have to say. I think only Donald Trump could take the city back and give it back to the people of Chicago. So we will be looking forward and bringing you all up to speed as that happens. So, but another action that is taking place that is extremely near and dear to my heart and the hearts of Chicagoans everywhere is in regard to our Pope Leo. What are we going to hear about that? Let's find out.
When the then Cardinal Robert Prevost was elected as the first pope from the United States of America, there was, of course, great celebration. However, amidst all the excitement, it occurred to many American financial advisors and politicians that the newly elected Pope Leo XIV might have a rather complicated tax and citizenship situation, considering his new position. Unlike European countries that have had popes elected in the past, the United States has not yet developed citizenship or tax laws particular to a U.S.-born pontiff. It turns out that the IRS does not have a specific tax code for papal rulers. In response to the growing concern regarding Pope Leo's citizenship and the millions he may have to pay in taxes, a Colorado congressman, Representative Jeff Hurd,
How
has
about
introduced
that,
the Holy
folks?
Sovereignty Protection Act. This bill seeks to prohibit the revocation of U.S. citizenship given an American's election to the papacy, and it exempts that individual from U.S. tax obligations while serving as pope. While the bill has only been introduced to the floor, Representative Hurd hopes that this bill will exemplify the extraordinary nature of the papacy.
Wow, folks. Now, for any of those joining us outside of Colorado, Jeff Hurd is not what you would describe as popular among particularly religious folks, very nationalist kind of folks, grassroots people in general. They really don't like him. So, and there's a number of reasons for that. It mostly has to do with his lack of support for the big, beautiful bill, the lack of support for the agenda of President Trump in certain regards. And I absolutely would be amiss not to mention that. It has to be mentioned. But isn't that kind of amazing that our Congressman Jeff Hurd, who is a Catholic, would introduce such a bill to protect the Holy Father from the clutches of the most evil institution in the entire world? Not hell, but the IRS. The Pope's already protected from hell. The gates of hell shall not prevail against this church. And I guess Jeff Hurd wants to make sure that the IRS is included in that. So, this is something very interesting. We actually reached out to some representatives, some people who are connected to Congressman Hurd. So we will actually be following up on this story. We will be asking what made Congressman Hurd take an interest in the Holy Father and his tax status. What brought this up? And I really have to give it up for the name of the bill. I mean, the name of the bill is the Holy Sovereignty Protection Act. Now, have you ever heard a more based name for a bill in your life? I mean, the Holy Sovereignty Protection Act. It sounds like a bill that's about to remake America into an integralist, Catholic state. So it's just fascinating to me that somebody who is, again, not particularly popular with grassroots, with very, very overtly nationalist people, would do something that could be very much considered in the vein of religious nationalism, or at the very least, something which forces the government to acknowledge the importance of religion. To say, we know that you don't tax churches, but we want to make sure that you give a special status to the Holy Father, the Pope in Rome. I cannot express to you guys, forget Jeff Hurd for a second here. Let's look at the historical precedent. America has not always been what we might describe as a country who has been 100% friendly to Catholicism. Not always. There's a number of reasons for that, and we've more than, got over a lot of that, much like with most prejudices in the United States, much like many will refuse to acknowledge. But it is true that America has had anti-Catholic tendencies in the past. And so the idea to, nativists of the 1800s, that we would have, a very Catholic Supreme Court, a Catholic vice president, a Catholic Secretary of State, who is also the National Security Advisor and the archivist, and Catholic congressmen and senators who are putting forward a bill called the Holy Sovereignty Protection Act to protect an American who was elected Pope. Guys, if you went back in time to the 1840s or 1850s and told Americans back then, or, people in New England, wherever, Americans, that this was going to happen, they would have looked at you like you were crazy and potentially accused you of being a popist conspiracyist. We literally had entire propaganda sweeps about these kind of things. So, it's honestly the historical importance of HR 4501. I hate these numbers, don't you? HR 4501, with a side of fries. The Holy Sovereignty Protection Act. It is one of the most historic bills in our country's history, partially because it's a historic time that an American has become the Pope. We've never had to think about that. And I want you to think about this as the last aspect of this. How are you going to get rid of churches' tax-exempt status and shut down religion in this country when even the Pope is tax-exempt? And may we make a point that if tax exemption is good enough for the Pope so that he doesn't renounce his American citizenship, maybe that concept is good enough for the rest of us, and we don't need no stinking income tax. No stinking... I'm not going to insult the IRS. We love you, IRS. We really appreciate you for everything you do for us. But guys, all joking aside, all fun aside, we do at Hispanic Patriot want to give credit where credit is due. Colorado Congressman Jeff Hurd making historical waves probably all the way up to Rome itself. So credit where credit is due. We're going to try to get an answer out of what prompted such a thing. And we at Hispanic Patriot Podcast will be letting you know when we get that information, if we get that information. So guys, here we come to the main event of the show tonight, which is talking about the Colorado special session, which was called by our Governor Polis. So much restraint I have to do. Usually Hugo is the one restraining me from these kind of things, but not tonight, folks, not tonight. I'm going completely solo on my restraint. We appreciate all of our overlords at YouTube, and we ask all of you to help overcome the algorithm by giving us a like, subscribe, and especially sharing with your friends. If you could share with your friends, we would really appreciate that. Anyone and everyone, Hispanics, non-Hispanics, as we say, we don't care if you just like tacos. That's good enough for us. So the special session of the Colorado legislature has just wrapped up the other day. Yours truly was at the Capitol watching it all go down. And so here we are with a little taste of that.
After 6 tense days under the Gold Dome, Colorado's special session is set to wrap up tonight. Lawmakers wrestled with the state's budget shortfall, managing to find a way to close a nearly $800 million gap. It's been a whirlwind stretch that will leave a lasting mark on Colorado politics. Brandon Richard with Scripps News Group in Denver reports.
Lawmakers gave final approval to their last batch of bills aimed at addressing the $783 million budget cap. The Democratic majority strategy focused on ending tax breaks, dipping into state reserves, and cutting spending.
I mean, we came in here to fix a $1 billion hole that was blown in our budget by federal Republicans.
They got little help from Republicans who accused Democrats of raising taxes.
We were here to cut, and we ended up spending.
The special session wasn't just about the budget. The governor asked lawmakers to look at changing Colorado's first-in-the-nation AI law after the tech industry and business leaders expressed concerns. But in a stunning announcement, the Senate Majority Leader said a deal that had been reached had suddenly collapsed.
Business, consumer protection advocates, labor, and educators came together, but big tech didn't like the deal. because they don't like the liability.
Lawmakers voted to delay the law to next summer, giving them time to try again
and I watched
during
them
the
do
2026 session. Lawmakers in the House spent their final hours debating a resolution condemning former State Representative Ryan Armagost. Armagost resigned last week after Democrats announced a plan to censure him for taking a photo of Democratic lawmaker Yara Zokai and sharing it in a private group chat where she was mocked for her attire.
I think that what I experienced was
public
hard for
shaming
me and my family, but indicative of a greater cultural issue.
Republicans called the move highly partisan, and the Republican leader stormed out of the chamber after she says Democrats accused her of lying. In a text message to Denver 7, Armagost dismissed the resolution, calling it an attempt to distract Colorado voters from the perpetually increasing horrific nonsense being pulled by the Democrats
it
in
was.
that building.
Brandon Richard, Scripps News Crew.
Wow, folks. Folks, I want to tell you right now, there is no allegedly to that when Rose Pugliese stormed out. I watched House Democrats. I watched them accuse Rose of being a liar, of all kinds of things. They basically threw everything at her but the kitchen sink. And it was not okay. And I'm happy to say that when I saw this, I ran right up to Rose, patted her on the back, and said, "We back home are with you all the way." Because we are. And I wanted to make the point also, I also watched Ryan Armagost get censured like that. And, that seemed to be the only thing they actually took seriously all day. And that's really sad. But we're about to make it a lot more happy, folks, because we have with us our special guest, our intrepid reporter from the Capitol herself, Schume Navarro. Praying to God that I pronounced that correctly.
You did.
Thank God. Schume, it's great to see you, and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, please, it was amazing, ma'am. It was amazing. I went to the Capitol for the first time by myself. As you know, usually we have groups. Usually we have, you go with force. But I went all by my lonesome. And, it was a special time. It was the last day. It was a very special time. And like I said, I chose that video because I literally was in the gallery right next when Rose Pugliese was basically, pushed out. They were very mean to her. And of course, the media was not reporting on that. But Schume, you have your own experiences from the Capitol, and we would love for you to share them with our audience.
Yeah, that whole thing that they did was so funny because, of course, they needed some sort of narrative or political stunt to change the topic.
Distractions.
From being on how they did not save us money during the special session, which was what we were called to do. So they made it totally about just drama, to be honest with you. I was watching and I was just in shock. Like, are we seriously doing this? This is wild. And the things that they literally say on their own. I mean, the lady who was up there, Rep. Zokai, she has called parents, actually, KKK members who don't want their kids to be mutilated community and who want a seat at the table for these bills. And she was like, why would we have members of the KKK come sit at our tables with us to discuss these bills? And so she said she was getting, heat and death threats because of her outfit. And I just have a really hard time believing that is the real, if she was.
A woman getting death threats about her outfit is not the most common thing I've ever heard about.
I just seem so, not deep enough. I think what would warrant more death threats, and our death threats are terrible and should not be coming, but there's a range of people on Twitter. I would say
and we've all dealt with them.
Saying that stuff. Yeah, seriously. Saying that stuff on, about parents, I think would have warranted it. So I don't know.
Honestly, no, not at all. No, we don't say warranted, but
more what would cause the death threats than her outfit, is what I'm trying to say.
No, absolutely. And I actually want to make a point of that, because something that I really hate, and we have this a lot in our country, that we have a lot of language policing, that we can't just express our thoughts. We have to be perfect at everything we say for, legal reasons. They're going to accuse us of things. And I wanted to make a point about how I witnessed the language policing that they do. I saw this against Representative Rebecca Kelty,
Yes.
who was not allowed to say the term shell game in regards to the money being moved around. And so it's interesting, I find, that these censorious individuals are so upset when, people just speak like they do.
Yeah, I know. They care very heavily about words, and mainly they want to silence us, and that's
all it is.
Yeah.
Well, as Ronald Reagan said, we are shy no longer, and I think we need to be shy no longer, because I certainly did not see any shyness from the Republicans. And, I wanted to ask this question that, I wanted to express what I saw from the Democrats. And we talked about this before the show, but I had a very interesting experience with one state senator who will go unnamed, but you'll be able to figure it out pretty quickly. I wore two pins. This, one Republican-ish pin, one Democrat-ish pin. Like you do. And, I have long hair. People can't always tell, what my beliefs are.
And you're Hispanic, so you never know.
Exactly. However, many Democrats have tried to take that title away from me because of my skin tone. But beyond that, right. And so I asked, I was just making chit chat with people coming out of this chamber. I said, oh, how about that or whatever. So this ma'am comes along and I say to her, wow, this is much better than I have in Chicago, in the State House in Chicago, rather. And she walks on, but she makes a point to return to me and ask, what did you mean by that? And I said, oh, just genuinely, I moved here from Chicago, ma'am, and I like Colorado much more than back home. You guys have much less problems than we do. And she asked me, why are you wearing that pin? And it was a pin to free Tina Peters.
Oh.
I forgot doubles as the Free the Hostages in Israel pins. Very similar shade.
Oh, okay.
To make. Do I tell her what it really is, or do I say it's for Israel?
Oh.
Because I know that she'll hate me for the one, but it's a toss-up for the other. No,
yeah,
it's not.
She'll hate you for both, probably.
Exactly. And I want to express the amount of anti-Semitism that's grown in the Democrat Party since when I was a kid in Chicago is immense. Like, it's a world apart. Yeah. But neither here nor there, what she says to me is, do you support the genocide in Palestine? I said, of course not, ma'am. Actually, we've talked about this on the show, that I've had a colleague that was killed in an Israeli airstrike. So I understand, the feelings in multiple ways. But she said, well, then you should wear a Palestinian pin. And I said, do you have one on you, ma'am? She said, not right now. And so I expressed that interaction for one reason, to say that of all the Democrats I interact with, not a single one, except for one older Hispanic gentleman who I didn't know very well. They literally were so defensive and just ready to be attacked. They were antisocial, and they had an extreme lack of confidence. Yes. So between that story and the question I want to ask you, ma'am, what do you feel about the sort of morale of the Democrats up at the Capitol? Do they seem as confident as they let on in the media?
No. The thing is, they get a rise out of being a victim. So that's all that was right there. Yeah, exactly. And so they just want to be a victim all the time. And it's interesting because they'll get along with some of our side every now and then, but it's like walking on eggshells because you never know what's going to turn them loose. You saw with Zokai how she was up there and handed tissues, and how she was it just seems like a facade. There's no depth actually to the pain. And sometimes I've lived through stuff, and so sometimes I just wonder if they've actually lived through stuff.
Or just pretending to have gone through stuff because they know their constituents have.
Exactly. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. My representative that I work for, she gets along with the Black Caucus. Those are her girls. And I love that. They're typically just a lot more like easygoing and real, and they think a lot of the drama is just like ridiculous. And so that's something that is nice. She sits right next to Representative English, and they've been on.
Oh, my representative.
Oh, is she your representative?
She is indeed.
And she has somebody coming up against her, primarying her, who's a big trans rights activist.
Wow.
And he's a pretty reasonable, like, I mean, if you have to have a Dem up there, like, she's still like pro-choice, which, you know, we don't like. But the stuff that she does with parents, I feel like is good. And so there's areas where you can get along, but honestly, it's really hard. It's really hard. So, I mean, we're morally and ideologically opposed, and they think we are, I don't know.
The devil incarnate sometimes.
Yeah. So, and the whole week that we were there, it was all about, Trump is bad. Republicans are bad.
HR 1 is responsible for the reason we're here, you know?
It was said every single comment in committee. And it was just like they got their talking points.
I thought it was special that they managed to shoehorn in that when condemning Ryan Amangast. It was subtle, but they managed to shoehorn that in. I thought that was really special.
Every single time. They literally, I don't know.
You know why Ryan posted that photo? Because of HR 1.
Seriously. Oh, it was excessive.
But let's talk about that, actually. Yeah. The fact that HR 1 seemed, a federal thing. I mentioned this actually in a video we posted before the show, that why is it, and maybe this is the question to ask, why is it that the Democrats believed that they could fail to plan for a Republican federal government, fail to plan for a lack of federal dollars from their actions? If they want a strong, independent Colorado, then shouldn't a strong, independent Colorado be able to survive without dirty Republican money? Why are they begging for money from a Republican administration that they're thumbing their nose at?
I have it's really, they just want to expand government, and they think everybody should pay their fair share is something that they kept saying when they're wanting, just every and all business owner and every person to pay for everything. Something about the state budget is that it has grown like nearly 50% in the last 6.5 years. And in the last 6.5 years, tell me who's been in charge?
I think they are called Democrats in my line of work.
Yeah, seriously. So that's crazy. And like over like 1,000 new state employees have been added every year during that same period. A fun fact is that many programs and salaries were funded with the one-time federal COVID money, and that is all gone. And so now, just thinking about it just regularly, families and businesses can't expand at that rate. And it doesn't make sense why the Democrats think that we can too, without cutting back on things, without, changing how we're doing things. They had no plan in how to cut spending. It was all about just taxing more.
And that's terrible. I think you hit it on the nail on the head that our families could not expand at that rate. There are millennials who are going to have to wait another 10, 5, however many years. There are Gen Zers who have to wait 10, 15 years to have one child. And yet these people have expanded their government family by 1,000 people. That's completely unacceptable, especially for our Hispanic community, who is so used to big families. And what we see the trends is that younger Hispanics tend to have smaller families than their parents, still families. Yeah. But I would almost classify this, and maybe I'm going a little far, but I would almost classify it as genocide, only because the UN classifies it that way. So
100%.
Because we've already seen this with Black Americans, we've seen this with white Americans, and it looks to me that Hispanics, being a cultural force that have not been broken so strongly, is a target in the Democrats' crossfire.
Oh yeah, they're in one committee, the very first committee. I can't remember what bill it was, but this young Hispanic daughter came in and she shared about how expanding the taxes that were being proposed will completely put out their taco business. They sell tacos and they have a storefront, and she put it out there strictly in how it's going to affect her family specifically as a Hispanic, as a person of color that the Democrats love to rally behind.
Not enough color, I guess, for them.
No, and they completely annihilated her in their closing comments on this and killed that bill. So it's sad. Something that I
Very
noticed too on what's called Instagram is that middle children are actually going extinct because exactly what you're talking about. Families are getting smaller. They're only having like 2 kids now, and then maybe some are having 4, but really honestly, parents are only reproducing just their own selves, and that's not expanding our population. That's literally
No, this is the reason for the mass migration, the replacement migration.
Yes.
And I think that our Hispanic community has the largest to say about this because, quite frankly, we were the group that was first brought in to replace Americans. And we decided, no, we don't want to replace Americans. We want to become Americans.
Yeah.
Very similar, actually, to the Visigoths in the Roman Empire. Perhaps history is repeating itself. Because what they said was, we want to reinvigorate the place that we have entered. And so it's interesting that a fact to just throw out there, that Hispanics in Colorado start more small businesses than any other single demographic. And this special session, I might notice, has heavily focused on regulating business. Could it be said that the special session called by the Democrats was in part to fix the budget, quote unquote, on the backs of Hispanic Coloradans? Could that be said fairly, you think?
You gave me goosebumps with that, honestly. Yeah, because there was even another bill that was proposed about basically it would take it to and I might be messing this up, but it was basically that would allow the state to vote on a ballot that they want to have to be taxed on overtime and all of that stuff. And the Democrats literally just don't even care about our input at all. And those kinds of things like overtime, like people that are working overtime and people that are getting tips, that's a lot of millennials. That's a lot of people of color. That's, that's not. And what they were saying is that those are people that are, have a private jet. And I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Those people aren't working overtime. They're on salary.
That's ridiculous. My private jet was repossessed the other week, aren't they?
I know my husband, he was so funny. He was like, he's an accountant. He does accounting for a plumbing business. And he's like,
very nice.
I do, he cuts checks, he pays them. And he's like, the people that I'm cutting checks that do have overtime, they definitely do not have a private jet. Like, let me tell you, and they need that money. And the HR 1 through Trump, said, no taxing on overtime or tips. And our government, because we need that money, they decided to basically, kill that and add it back to what we're taxed. So that awesome thing that Trump did with taking away that tax, it was killed by the Democrats. And so we have to pay on overtime and tips.
That's ridiculous. The Democrats making Colorado a better place economically.
Oh yeah.
We already saw this with the attack on Tabor, which we can be sure of. Is going to be continuing next year. So I think that we really have made it very clear that, especially in our constituents here in El Paso County, that even though Republicans are the minority, they need to be listened to for their interest groups. I think that the Democrats have completely forgotten that these representatives represent actually millions of people that are actually living in their districts as well.
Yeah.
Including business owners, including the people they're demonizing.
Yeah.
So I wonder then if they're demonizing the people, they're demonizing corporations, the ones that don't cut their checks, I suppose. And, who are the Democrats' allies at the present moment? And do we think those allies will actually follow them next year? Or are we going to see potentially a mass abandonment, mass desertions?
Well, I'll tell you who, Big Pharma, also like
the fetal harvesting industry.
Yeah. Planned Parenthood, 100%. They definitely reallocated money to go to Planned Parenthood. And then I would also say like large corporations, and what's so crazy is their whole platform is on helping the minorities, it just in general minorities, but and amplifying their voice. Yet we are in the minority and they silence us. They did Rule 14 and Rule 16, which, if you don't know,
yes, please mention that.
Literally, where they completely like silence. I made a meme and it went really viral, and it's the whole state, and it's all the Republican demographics, which takes up nearly like more than half of the state. They silenced us all because they want to just push their bills through so quickly without debate, without argument. Representative Camacho got up there and said, this is costing the state $50,000 a day. We're wasting time talking about this stuff, because our reps, our good reps, would go up there and argue and, defend and filibuster.
Fight.
Yes. And they don't care what they have to say. It's so upsetting to see how they're like playing games on their phone.
I witnessed that as well.
Yeah, they're talking. They do not care.
They were eating some nice snacks, I will say that. I got very hungry at the Capitol. All I had was my 2 boxes of raisins, and I'm looking at them like, man, where are you guys? You got a cafe in here? There's no cafe.
Snacks, let me tell you.
So there has to be someone delivering this. There's no restaurant or cafe or vending machines in the Capitol, right? This is all outside food.
Not during special session. And so they they silenced it. And Rule 14, I think, is the one that limits it to just an hour of debate. And so the Democrats could even get up there and take up that whole hour just explaining the bill. On one that was about fighting for like Planned Parenthood getting the money, Representative Brandy Bradley got up there and held the well for literally 40 minutes. It was awesome. It was so badass. And she was just giving notes, and she just basically preached a whole sermon on life.
That's absolutely fantastic. Actually, man, if you could, why don't you talk about your representative and the work you guys do together for a little bit? What do you guys do for that? Tell us all about it.
I came on Rep. Brandy Bradley. She's been a friend of mine for like a while. I ran for school board. We got involved when COVID was going crazy and affecting our children. And we were just both mama bears. I'm in Arapahoe County. She's in Douglas County. And we were kind of doing the same thing, just, in different counties, and grew a friendship in that space. And, I helped her. I'm a design artist, and so a graphic artist. So I designed her website. I helped her with a lot of stuff for a lot of different stuff for campaign collateral and stuff. And then she asked me to become her aide. And I was so nervous because I'm a former hairstylist. Like I did hair for 20 years and then kind of just went to school a little bit for graphic art and just kind of dabbled in it. But like, this is the Capitol. I was like, do you need a degree to be a legislative aide?
Not as all as it turns out.
I didn't know. And so she's like, no, like she was just convincing me. She brought in I was scared. I go in there and I start working last session. So January 7th of this year. And I realized not like, you don't have to be that smart to be.
They don't got a clue what they're doing up there.
You don't even have to be that smart to be a representative, ends up.
In fact, it might actually be a detriment to have that level of intelligence.
Right? And so I really, I started working for her, and our whole goal is to get what's happening from under the dome out from under the dome. Because that's the thing that pisses off the Dems the most. They want to keep what they're doing quiet. Like when they killed our bill, and I say our bill because we worked on it. It's hers, Rep. Bradley's bill to put in jail people who grape. Get that word out?
Yeah, exactly. No, quite right.
Children, to actually have them go to jail instead of letting them be like slapped on the wrist and getting probation. The Democrats killed that in committee, and it was so insane hearing them argue in support of those terrible people who are doing that to children, and that stuff getting out from under the dome. Democrats were even like appalled that their rep literally was fighting for that. So that's my job. I get what's happening under the dome and I get it out. And during this special session, we had so many viral clips, so many viral posts. And we got it out what they were doing, and it was awesome. It was a rush.
I love that. No, that was perfect. And that's actually another reason that I went down to the Capitol, because we were getting such little information.
Yeah.
So little. All we heard about was the smoke screens, the distractions. and we couldn't stand it. So I was sent right down to the Capitol to get the information right up front. We saw the press conference with the Republican legislators, and that's actually something that I would love to end our conversation on. Something very, very lighthearted. I want to talk about the Hispanic legislators, and I think we at the Hispanic Patriot Podcast here can give your rep, Randy Bradley, the honorable title of Hispanic Patriot. She is a Hispanic Patriot.
Identify.
And there you go.
Yes.
Beautiful. And so we also have some amazing Hispanic Patriots. We have some great people all over the Capitol, not just representatives. But I wanted to talk about the representatives for a second because you have familiarity with the work and everything. Yeah. Representative Baron and Representative Gonzalez. These are people who seem to actually, from my observation, Baron actually was honored with best hair. I think I could give him a run from his money on that, but we'll get to that. But and I saw between Ryan and Baron, there was a lot of pull. They had a lot of charisma and confidence. I was very shocked at the level that Hispanics have in this state. I mean, we could even talk about Shane Sandridge, Dave Williams. There is a lot of people who are Hispanic who have immense influence and say in Colorado. So I wanted to ask you, Schume, what do you think about that? Why do you think in Colorado, Hispanics have such an opportunity to take leadership positions? And what do you think about our culture? Do you think we're offering to Colorado and its people?
The hairstylist in me was just like, well, we have great hair.
Yes. Yes, we do, folks. Yes, we do.
But jokes aside, well, I do like Ryan's facial hair that he came to special session with. I thought that looked really nice, to be honest with you.
So Ryan, keep that facial hair.
Yeah, keep it. Look, it's working. I just think that there's an understanding that Hispanics can just, relate to just the normal person. All of us grew up in just like regular people, like our family worked hard, we saw the value of family. We saw, just the value of our faith in policy and in just our family and religion. And so I just think that there's a realness that is tangible. There's not an elitist that comes with just Hispanic culture, just in general. We're very people. And so I think that has a range to reach even Democrats, just like what you said, like how people don't really know, like, oh, are you Hispanic or are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? I used to have blue in my hair. And, I really kind of they questioned that a lot. Just being a real person, just being someone who's approachable, and just understanding aspects of life that maybe, somebody from Castle Rock or, Boulder might not really understand in terms of, living on food stamps, like having your mom clean houses for a living.
Having your car stolen.
Janitor,
Having your car stolen. That's very common here.
Fortunately. Stuff. So I just think it's being relative to others and approachable and just having that vision of actual society, what the normal people are living through. So, and if they remember that, which they seem to, with protecting Tabor and everything like that, we're in good hands in that space. And they're newer and like they'll keep learning and doing better. And I just think that's beautiful in terms of the Republican Party, we're expanding, the big tent, it shows, so that's great.
It's very true. We have a big, beautiful family. And everyone's invited to it because the best of the best have come to America.
And I wanted to say,
please.
In terms of like being connected to know what's going on, if I could suggest 3 representatives to follow on Twitter, because Twitter's the best place to get all the information, to be honest with you. I would say Rep Bradley, Rep Bottoms, and Rep Kindegraff. They are
100%.
They're very active on there, and if you follow them, you'll just know what's going on. Just in general. So, yeah.
There you go. Our intrepid reporter from the Capitol, Schume Navarro. We really appreciate you, ma'am. Thank you for all your work. We will have you on again, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. Great being here.
We always love to have you. And folks, that is the show. We have had a great time with you guys. We have really loved everything we were able to provide for you. But as it goes, the music shows us the way out. It is closing time. It is time to go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But folks, thank you for joining us on the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, and we will see you next week, 6 p.m. every week until the end. Gracias. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. God bless Colorado. And thank you all very much for joining. Take care.